Hey guys, today I'll be doing an oil change for my wife's 2018 Hyundai Tucson. Now this is a complete beginner's guide, but you will need a few different tools which I will list in the description below. Hope you enjoy the video. Alrighty, and first thing we're going to want to do is lift up the front of the vehicle. In this case I'm using a small 2-ton floor jack. Now for those who don't do this every day, it can sometimes be a little difficult. In this case, we're using the subframe. This can support the weight of the vehicle. Ideally, you'll check your vehicle specifications as far as where to safely lift it from. Make sure to avoid any kind of structural welds or any moving parts. Next, we'll go in with our jack stands and insert these underneath the pinch welds on the front side of the vehicle. It is very important, guys, that you do not rely on the jack alone to keep the weight of the vehicle up. Trust me, you do not want to be underneath the vehicle in the event that that jack fails. So do yourself a favor, get some jack stands, guys. You'll see I'm using a wooden block here to lift up the vehicle just a bit higher. This will allow me to raise up the jack stand height and insert the safety pins. Now, some might argue that this is overkill, but me personally, I prefer to use my vehicle products as they are designed, so make it that as you will. And with the 2 jack stands in place and the jack supporting as a third point of contact, along with the 2 vehicle chocks that I did forget to place in the video, and the e-brake engaged, I'd say it's about time to go ahead and drain our oil. First, you'll need to locate the engine oil pan and drain plug. Now, some newer cars have an undercarriage cover. Fortunately for me, this one has been removed. Now, once you've located this area, you'll need to loosen the drain plug. Now, these plugs are pretty tight, so try your best to break the torque without banging up your hands. And once you've loosened the drain plug, you want to back it off by hand the rest of the way. As you can see here, the oil does pour out very fast once the plug's been removed, so make sure to have your catch can or container in position. And as you can see, most of the oil has drained, so it's time to turn our attention to the filter. Make sure to put a dirty rag or a shop towel down to catch any oil drippings from the pan. Now you can sometimes turn these filters by hand with a good strong grip, so give it a try. If that doesn't work, we'll move on to the next step. Now, you could spend $10 or $12 on some fancy oil filter wrench, but if you want to save money where you can do what I do. Oh yeah. See, if you grew up in a house like mine, you came to find that apart from whipping ass and putting the fear of God into children, the belt actually had some other uses too. So this will likely take some trial and error, but essentially you can wrap the belts around the filter so that you can break the torque and back it off by hand the rest of the way. Now, I'm not going to sit here and tell you that this is the best method ever. Truth be told, it took me about 5 minutes and a good bit of elbow grease to try to get this thing off. But one thing to keep in mind when you're working on your own vehicle, things will not always go according to plan. Sometimes even things as simple as an oil change. One mindset to keep in mind is that, if you throw stuff at the wall, maybe at a few different angles, eventually it'll stick. In this case, I just really didn't feel like buying the oil filter wrench since I already know I could do this, but take that as you will, do your own research. Buying a wrench might even save you a few minutes. And so I have to admit, this was definitely one of the more stubborn filters that I've replaced. But as you can see, after changing up my approach a little bit, I was able to break the torque and then remove it by hand. And with our catch can in position, it's time to go ahead and remove the oil filter so that we can drain out the rest of the oil. There usually is a little bit of oil still left in here, so just be careful as you pull it off. It is best practice to let the car sit for a few minutes while any remaining oil drains out. Definitely make sure to give it a quick wipe down and check both outlets just to make sure everything is intact. It's also recommended that you remove the oil cap while everything's draining. So today I'll be using this Valvoline Full Synthetic along with the Fram Ultra Synthetic filter. Both of these came highly recommended, but it's definitely a good idea to check your vehicle manufacturer specs for what your car needs. I'd also recommend visually inspecting the oil filters. If there's any major differences, you'll definitely want to consult the manufacturer specs before replacing. Now that the oil pan is completely drained, you want to give a quick wipe down to the surface and then replace your drain plug. Do a quick visual inspection of the drain plug gasket to make sure it's still intact, and then start tightening by hand. Once you've gone as far as you can, you'll go back in with your socket wrench. You definitely want to be careful not to tighten these too hard, guys. I usually go about 80 to 90% of the way, and then I'll give one quick quarter turn to really snug it on. Now, believe it or not, this next step is essential. You'll want to take some of the new oil and lubricate the filter. Definitely make sure to get a decent amount around the filter gasket as well. Some people would say that the old oil is better to use, but quite frankly, I've used the new oil every single time, and in the years I've done oil changes, I've never had any issues. Now, when installing the new oil filter, you want to do this entire step by hand. I cannot stress this enough, you do not want this oil filter to be on too tight, because over time it will tighten. Again, we want it to be about 80, maybe 90% of the way. That's about 90. We'll give it a good quarter or so. And one more for good measure. And now I'm going to go ahead and lower the vehicle so that I can start adding oil. And you'll insert your funnel. If you don't already have one of these, you can usually get some cheap paper ones from your local auto parts store for free. Again, we're using Valvoline high mileage because this car does have over 90,000 miles. And you'll want to start with a slow pour, making sure not to spill any or as little as possible. I would also recommend turning the bottle sideways because this does help kind of smoothen out the flow just a little bit, and it gives you a little better control. Now, I have to admit, I can be a bit of a bonehead sometimes, so as much as I'd love to say I did this for educational purposes, I did accidentally overfill the system. If this does happen, don't freak out. Firstly, you need to calculate how much you put in using whatever containers that you purchased. In this case, I used 5 quarts, and the engine only calls for 4.3, so just grab an empty container and a measuring cup of some kind and slowly drain out the excess. I did cut that out of the video, but essentially I drained out about a little more than half a quart. And as you can see here, we are just underneath the fill line. And one more time for good measure. All right, so we are again just underneath the fill line, right where we want to be. So I'll go ahead and reinsert the dipstick and let's turn her over. Time to start her up. There you go. All right, guys. So I've let the car run for about 4 or 5 minutes now. I checked the oil level a handful of times just to make sure it was right in between the low and the full. You don't want it to be too low. You don't want it to be too high. You want to keep it right in that happy medium. I also checked underneath the vehicle, make sure that there wasn't any leaking anywhere. Again, make sure you do not over snug the oil filter. Do it by hand, and just give it a nice good, kind of snug, but not too snug. Turn on there, and with the same thing with the drain plug. You want to snug that on pretty good, but if you plan on doing oil changes in the future for your own vehicle, do yourself a favor and do not snug it on too much. You know, again, maybe get it pretty much all the way there and then give it a good oomph at the end. But yeah, guys, if you've made it this far, thanks for watching. Not sure when I'll do more DIY maintenance, but you know, hopefully I'll be posting again soon. Hope this helps people who are looking into getting into doing their own oil changes and any other DIY maintenance. So again, thanks for watching.